Welcome to the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast, where we break down what it really takes to win in short-term rentals in today's market. From insider tips and emerging trends to real conversations with top playmakers in the space, this show gives you the tools, strategies, and mindset to build and scale a successful short-term rental business. Now, here's your host, Joe Roney.
Today's episode is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents, the short-term rental.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker Podcast. Super excited to have Ryan Leake here today to talk about scaling. A lot of you guys started with my co-host coach podcast and you started scaling co-hosting businesses, but Ryan here scaled from 0 to 70 in a very short period of time. Ryan, how you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about it, and you just let me know where you want to start here.
Yeah. So, obviously, we all got to have different stories on how we got into the short-term rental space. And I don't like our podcast to go into everything, every little detail, but what made you say, you know what, I want to jump into this? And what was your first thing you did to get into here?
Yeah, sure. First thing is I was sick of a corporate job. I really was not feeling like I could hit any goals I set for myself. So I was doing reflecting. I was figuring out what I want my life to look like in 3, 5, 10 years. And once I figured out what I want that life to look like, there's a financial number that's attached to that. And when I was looking at the trajectory of my corporate job, 3, 5, 10 years from the time I was doing my goal setting or reflection, I wasn't going to be able to hit any of those goals. So I realized I had to take some control back into my life, into my business, into my income. So I started looking at options as I was in the midst of looking at being a wholesaler or a real estate flipper. I wanted to do something in real estate, but short-term rentals popped up at a meetup with a lady that suggested co-hosting. I didn't hear anything about it, but as soon as I heard that, Instagram's algorithm took over. Mike Shogren with STR Secrets popped up, and I started hearing everything there was to hear about co-hosting. So as I'm doing all this research, I get laid off from my job. So now my income's at 0. And I was like, all right, I could go apply to jobs, or I'm hearing about this path of building an income that can replace your W-2 through co-hosting. So I opened up a credit card. I put Short-Term Rental Secrets coaching program on that credit card. And then I went through the entire program. I put my back against the wall. There wasn't really a plan B. And I decided I was going to make a few hours a day for cold calls. I was going to do emails. I was going to show up to agents' offices, and I was going to go balls to the wall to make sure this business actually worked. So within 10 months, I brought on 10 properties. Within 12 months, there were 12 properties. And then after 12 months, I found a partner. We combined our portfolios. Then we found a third partner. And now with all of our portfolios combined, we have 70 properties under management. I am based here in Austin. I'm making sure everything is running smoothly and the property is performing in Austin. But that's all down the line. At the beginning, it was a grind, but that's what really got me into it, is realizing it was a path to not work a corporate job. And it's been successful so far.
That's awesome. I love it because, one of the things I talk about in my podcast all the time is take the leap, take the jump. My wife and I have taken lots of risks, and you're obviously quite a bit younger than I am. So that's the time to make a mistake, right? You're in your, mid-20s. That's the time to make these jumps and make these mistakes. And I think it's freaking awesome. Like I think it's a testament of your mindset from the beginning. And then the second part of that is your investment in yourself. A lot of people look at these mastermind programs, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 and like, oh my God, that's a lot of money to invest. But you're getting more in that probably 90 days than you would out of 2 years in college anywhere.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things it did for me was build confidence, and that comes through education and community were the two things that it gave me. So having the confidence, the first part of it was believing that it could be successful. So people won't start any path unless they believe they can be successful. And I was like, all right, how hard could it be? I was coming from the commercial real estate side too. And then I was looking at this residential, short-term rental management company. And I'm like, how hard could it really be? You just need to find one client to start. And then that's potentially $1,000 a month to your income. And having the community say, all right, just go make one more call. And then having the confidence from, going through the education, I was willing to pick up the phone and call these people out of the blue. I was willing to show up to the agent's office with a flyer and a box of cookies and start to pitch myself and this business. Whereas without the community, without the curriculum and that confidence, it's a lot harder to just push yourself all the way along. And then I'm seeing other people start to collect wins or see things that are working for other people. And as someone that's a bit competitive, I start to want to also see wins. So I'm going to do an extra call, or I'm going to go out and try to get an extra client meeting that day. And that really pushed me along to scale quickly to those first 10 properties. I think I got my first property within 14 days of saying, okay, I'm going to do this. So it doesn't take long. And that's the beauty of co-hosting, as you know, is it really, what are the startup costs? You got an LLC, a website, print some flyers out, maybe get a QuickBooks, but it could be under $1,000. All in. And I didn't have any money. So I was like, all right, this works. Now I got the community. Now I got the confidence. I got the goals. And now I just got to grind to get those things. So, I think it all really started with that initial community though, and taking that leap into saying, okay, I'm going to do this for real.
What were some of those early conversations like, right? So like for me, when I started co-hosting, I had already owned multiple properties. So my conversation with a potential client is really easy. Hey, I own right down the street. Look what I'm doing. Here's my case study, and it's a no brainer. Oh yeah, we see what you're doing. Let's do it. But somebody that's young with no experience, with nothing under their belt, what was those first couple conversations like? Because I think a lot of the people that are in this space, in the spot where you were, that are scared, and just, I'd love to hear what those were like.
Yeah, it's funny because all of those things, if you write it out, could be a disadvantage. I don't own any properties. I'm young, I'm just starting out. But all of those things are equally as much my advantages. I'm young. I have more energy, right? I'm just starting out. I have more time. I don't do this. That one was probably the hardest, is like, you've never done this before. But then I start to lean on the fact that I have all of the knowledge I possibly need. And then I just started adding as much value as I could. So it was a fire hose at first that I was trying to absorb all this knowledge. But then once I had just enough, I realized that I was more well-versed on short-term rentals on this business than 95% of people. And it goes back to that belief. I had the belief that I could actually serve them. And then I just had to prove it to them through explaining the processes, through explaining our systems, through explaining the education that I then, acquired through this program. But the other two were easy. It's like, who are you going to go with instead? Vacasa or Evolve or a large property management company? Or you could go through me, who's a very small boutique local management company that is going to treat your property like it is the only property in our portfolio. Why? Because it is. It's like,
yes.
It really was an advantage at the beginning. And I still think for newer operators, that's an advantage you can leverage all day long, where I wouldn't be embarrassed to admit, your portfolio isn't big or you haven't even started, because that just means you can invest all of your attention and time onto this owner's property. So they tend to like hearing that they're going to get attention.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, my first PCB co-host property, the owner, he didn't even care that I was going to increase his revenue. His biggest thing was, one of my biggest frustrations is when I call my management company or send them an email when I have a problem, it takes them 7 to 10 days to get back to me. And I'm like, this is my cell phone number. If you email me, I'm going to be pissed. Like, pick up the phone and call me or send me a text. I want to fix it within 5 minutes. And he's like, really? I'm like, yes, this is my cell phone number. It's going to be on for you 24/7. You're not going to get that with any other PM. And that was the reason why he said yes. It had nothing to do that I increased his revenue by $50,000. He didn't care about that. He was happy that when he was mad about something, he could call me, and he was rarely mad about anything in the three years that I managed for him.
Yeah, so it's very real. It's a very real thing. That accessibility is huge.
It is. So, obviously, after 12 months, your acquisition, 12 and 12 months is honestly pretty awesome. I think that's a good mix, good trajectory to get to. What made you decide, I think I want to partner with somebody else?
Yeah. The biggest thing is if you have shared, or if you have goals that are aligned, and then you guys have a shared vision of what the future can look like, which for me and him was just operating the highest quality short-term rental management company and operating luxury short-term rentals. That was very aligned. It made a lot of sense on paper. If you look at bringing two companies together, just any merger, people talk a lot about M&A, and I'm still getting versed on it, but just any merger, you have your company, which is valued at a certain amount. Then there's, let's say, company B valued at a certain amount. Those are both sellable companies. And when you're looking at a value of a company, you're typically looking at two things. You're looking at the EBITDA, so the net profit of that company, and then the equity multiple. So that's assigned based on what the value of the company might be relative to what buyers would pay for it. So, typically for an early stage short-term rental management company, mine was about $100,000 to $150,000 in EBITDA. And so the equity multiple was pretty much like 1 or 1.5x.
Yep.
And when you merge companies, we're merging our EBITDA, and then our multiple increases because now our company is making more money. So it's going to be valued higher. So the combined value of our companies supported us merging because we both were going to make more money in the event of a sale and in the event of revenue share and cash flow, which is a huge reason we all get into this business, because also we had complementary skill sets where he was much more in tune with revenue management, the bookkeeping stuff. I was pretty solid at operations and scaling, and we're both good at, talking to clients and owners and making sure the guest experience is great. So we had those complementary skill sets. We had a shared vision. We were able to support both our goals under one company, and then the company is worth a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's why we did it, not only with me and my original partner, but a third partner now that we're doing the same exact concept. Our company just grows in value. And even with a lesser percentage of ownership, the value of that ownership is worth more.
Yeah.
So that was a huge portion of it. And then just finding the right person. Like, it's got to feel good. It's, if you and I are talking about a partnership, it's got to feel good when we're talking about it. And like, there was that gut feeling. I was like, this could work. Like, you're never going to feel 100% in, but it's like, this could work. And you're excited about it rather than, all right, this makes me really nervous, or I'm like tightening up. So, it was both times it happened. It was really successful. And now we have 3 of us that are operating the whole show, and it's working well across 70 properties, which is definitely not a small amount of properties to manage.
No, it's not. I only have 10 right now, and I'm happy. We are adding 2 more in 2 weeks that I wasn't planning to do it to add on, but yes, I'm happy with that. But I also don't have partners. I don't have a huge team. I have 2 VAs, and that's it. So, obviously we have a mutual friend that did similar to you, and Austin Spitzenberger, who's part of my mastermind originally. And, he joined my mastermind at the time because we were both in the same spot. We wanted to grow co-hosting businesses, and we kind of did it together. But he ended up going the same route as you. Did you go from traditional co-hosting to full service property management with trust accounting as well?
Yeah, we're full service with trust accounting. I never did the co-hosting route. Right from the bat, it was trust accounting. So that's just us collecting all the funds and then paying out owners, and then we send it to an operating expense account. One other thing I'll say on the previous subject of mergers, a lot of people will not reach out to other local managers or local STR operators. That is one of the highest value, looking back at, this merger, that was one of the highest value contacts I could have possibly made, which is reaching out to other local operators. And that was 3 conversations of just getting to know them and building rapport with them before we started talking about a merger. Yeah. But a lot of people shy away because they think, it's competition, or they think that it might be a competitive advantage for another operator if you're reaching out to them. But I think that's a mindset issue where, one, there's enough opportunity. I mean, your market is your market, but in Austin, there's 12,000 listings. There is plenty of opportunity to go around. So I want to team up with the other people doing exactly what I'm doing so we can learn from each other. Even if you're just starting out, you can still add value. So the person I partnered with, my first conversation with them was, hey, can I buy you coffee? Also, what's the inefficiency in your business? Because I'd like to help you solve that. So I found them a plumber because they didn't have a plumber that was actually providing good service for them. So I went to Facebook, I went to Business Classifieds, and I found them a plumber because I wanted to add value. So even if you don't feel like you're that valuable to a operator that might be further ahead, you can still be creative to add value to them.
Yeah.
So those conversations with early operators are probably what helped me the most getting started. And now looking at where my business is today, it's because of other operators. And I think that's where you're going to also see potential deal flow too, because operators like yourself, you're an experienced operator. You don't take every opportunity. As we scale, if we want to maintain quality, most good operators won't take every single property that comes across their desk. So that's another huge incentive to reach out to other short-term rental operators because they can be a lead source as well on top of a potential partner. So there's a lot of value and benefit to reaching out to other short-term rental operators and leaving your ego at the door. And once you start to get to know them and see the opportunities that come from partnering with them or talking to them, it's a no-brainer. It's a very high value contact.
So one of my questions, this is where a lot of people ask, how do you go from the boutique feel that you did when you started to your owners to having the same experience for your guests, for your owners, for everything when you expand to 70 plus?
Yeah. For us, it's still getting involved. Like we don't treat this like a passive business. We take vacations occasionally, but when we do that, we make sure we are plugging someone in to be on call. So if an owner calls, if a guest calls, me and my partners are still the ones picking up the phone. I was just on the phone with a guest because the pool was dirty. A lot of people have tried to automate that or hire someone else out for that. But we as business owners feel like the quality of experience is one of the most important things, not only for guests, but for owners.
Yeah.
So I think being super accessible, like we talked about early on, we understand that's something that takes a dip as people scale. We have tried to counteract that as much as possible. So we are still very accessible to owners. I'm texting and calling owners all the time. The other thing is your touch points with them. So owner statements. We are typically trying to give them a full brief when we send owners their payout each month. We explain what's going on with the property, what we're excited about, opportunities that we could probably leverage, whether it's amenity refreshes or, big events coming up or a midterm rental opportunity, whatever that is. But we are giving context to the owner so they feel like they are getting that personal level of detail and attention. Yeah. And they are. Like the last part of it is we hire people. So one of the biggest things I had to learn was I don't need to do everything myself to keep quality high. So now we have local managers in both our markets, so Austin and San Antonio, that their whole responsibility is keeping quality of homes high. So we're paying W-2 salaries, that support a full lifestyle just for people to make sure the quality of the homes stays as high as possible. Whereas a lot of other operators aren't doing that, but it keeps us sleeping well at night.
Yeah.
And having a greater sense of pride because we have someone going to these properties 4 people. And then if they need us to make sure we hit each property, I will step in or my other partners will step in. Yeah. So it doesn't feel like we've sacrificed our standards. It doesn't feel like we've sacrificed our quality. We are still getting involved. We're still getting our hands dirty. Our owners stay very happy. Our retention is pretty much 100% unless someone's selling their property. So it's definitely worked, but you got to pay for that. You got to pay for that increased level of quality. Whereas a lot of people, they want to keep, what we are paying our local managers, and then the quality dips, but their, income increases. So we're keeping our income a little bit lower to keep the quality high.
Yeah. I think that's important. And I think, there's a lot of people that get in this space that, oh, what can I do to do this to where I'm 100% hands off and I don't have to do anything anymore? And I love that as a goal, but we talked about this before. I call BS that anyone that says they're only working 2 to 3 hours in their business, it doesn't actually happen. So if they do, they're not running a high quality business. They have, their Vicasas of the world, so.
Should we touch on that really quick? Cause I just made a social media video about this, that anyone that says short-term rentals are passive is probably selling you on a course on Airbnb arbitrage or something.
Yes.
Because I don't believe that's true unless there were a few caveats. One is you hire a property manager. So
Yep.
like if you find the right property management company, that's when you can truly be passive in that investment. Our
Yep.
owners really are passive. Like if they want to scale, they're paying for it. They're paying 20% management fees, but they are truly passive because we are doing everything for them.
Yep.
And then we send them out their ACH or their check at the end of the month. The other thing is, if you want to be passive, you have to hire someone, or you need to scale to the point where you can hire a team to replace you.
Yep.
And that just takes a little bit longer. It takes a lot more effort. And it still takes money, but like that's one of the other ways to truly be more passive. It's never
Yes.
going to be you're just on the beach and you never get,
Yes.
a phone call. But those are the two ways that I was thinking through for ways that people can actually be passive in this business. And I'm curious if you'd agree with that, if there's a way I'm missing, or what your stance is on that.
No, I think it's exactly. I mean, I look at our business and okay, maybe if I pick up 5 or 6 more, I hired an operations manager that's doing everything that I do on a daily basis and handling all the issues and things like that. And then I could step back from it and, but then what's it to say that operations manager doesn't say, well, shoot, I'm doing this for him. I could easily go do this and make 10 times more money.
Yeah.
So when you train someone and, whether you pay them really well to do what they're doing, obviously that salary is going to have to be a pretty high salary. So you got to scale the right properties. And I think, the last thing that I really wanted to talk about was the right property. So early on, you took on anything that came your way, and you talked a little bit about switching into luxury. What does your onboarding look like today? Obviously you're still in acquisition phase. What types of properties are you really attracting and that you're going after now?
Yeah, it's the buy box or the wheelhouse for what we'll take on has shifted a ton. I think this business is most enjoyable and most profitable when you are being selective with properties that are high quality and high performing. Of course, you need to position yourself to attract those, but that's a whole nother conversation. But for us right now, we are taking on properties that are bringing in $150,000 or more in gross revenue. So we will make sure we're doing that assumption ourselves. So we'll use either price slabs or AirDNA for that assumption. And then majority of those just within that category have pools. So if it doesn't have a pool, we're in Central Texas, gets really hot in the summers. People are booking places with pools. If you don't have a pool in the summer, the performance typically isn't there. So those kind of go hand in hand. And then just quality, like we're looking at properties to make sure the floors aren't rising, the foundation isn't, cracking on the ceiling, little things like that. Now that we can be a bit more selective, we are actually looking proactively to see if properties are going to have huge CapEx expenses that, we're trying to prepare if we're going to get into that. We know what we're getting into the best we can within, one or two walkthroughs. So we'll look at that. And then the owner is huge. So are we working with owners that truly need our service? And if they don't need our service, we don't want to negotiate with them to have them try to step in for certain things and, convolute our operations. So we're very intentional about like their goals when we take on an owner. Like, what are they trying to achieve? Are they trying to actually be passive? Do they like the idea of going to their property and making sure the guests are having a great experience? Great. Yeah. Maybe they're not a good fit for us. We're looking for the investor or the high earning W-2 earner that is really looking to be passive. So that's one of our big criteria, along with making sure the performance is there. It's got the amenities. We won't take on a property if the owners aren't willing to invest in design, because if we are branding ourselves as a luxury company And then there's a bunch of Facebook Marketplace furniture. Not that you can't find a great deal on Facebook Marketplace, but you know what I'm talking about. Grandma's, carpets, that kind of stuff. Then we won't take it on. So we're passing on probably 85% of leads that come to us right now. And it goes to my earlier point, connect with other larger operators, because we pass those deals on to other short-term rental operators. So that's what the properties we'll take on looks like, though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have a similar philosophy and similar what we look for when we want to add things on, and I think it's huge. It creates your guest experience to be a lot easier to keep your 5-star reviews when you have luxury, high performing properties, because you already have everything in place to be able to have that. And if you have updated properties that are nice, you're going to get less issues. It doesn't mean you're not going to have any issues. You're going to get that guest that's nitpicky on every little thing. I had one that checked in yesterday and sent me like 9 pictures of a little stain here and a little scuff in the wall there. And I'm like, look, we're coming out of spring break here. Like, give me a break. We're going in 2 weeks to do our deep cleans and all that stuff. And I actually just did a podcast before you came on about how we actually wait to do our deep cleans until after spring break, because we're such a spring break heavy market and it's mostly younger crowds. We do our deep cleans before the families come. So we actually do our deep cleans in April, every year. And then we do a spot deep clean at the end of summer. But you just have to understand your market. But, I think it's pretty awesome what you've done, because you've, as a very young entrepreneur, found your space, found your niche, and then just went all in. Obviously, that's on the property management side. What about owning? Is that something you have aspirations for?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're bringing that up. I just purchased a property last month. So that's my second property that I own. The first one was a house hack in South Austin. Lived in it for a few months and then rented out each room. And I moved out, and that's a full rent by the room investment property. It's cash flowing a little bit, like a couple $100 each month. And then I just purchased my first short-term rental last month. So that was super exciting. I went in with one of my business partners, 50-50 on it. And it was, when I say turnkey, it was as turnkey as you could get, because it was a management client we already managed for. The property was already furnished. We already had the listing that we own, and we already had bookings all throughout this year for it. Yeah. And we closed in 30 days. The owner transferred all the utilities over to us, and it was, just the simplest, cleanest transaction. I'm very grateful for, because I've heard many other stories about investing, and, it's not as clean as that typically, but that's 100% part of my next play. Continuing to purchase a short-term rental each year is the plan. As my income also increases, I really want to take advantage of one of the most impactful benefits of short-term rentals, which is the tax advantages. Yep. So we already are planning our cost segregation study. We're going to materially participate. We're going to track all that, and then, qualify for that bonus depreciation. So that's our plan this year. And then it's really just going to be something that I continue to repeat. That's the plan, and build up that portfolio of short-term rentals. And my idea too, part of the reason I got into this business is for the lifestyle of it. So purchase properties in different markets that allow me to go to these different markets when I want to, with friends in the seasons. I'm okay, missing out on a weekend of revenue if it means that I get to be with all my closest friends and family and stay at a property that I own. So that's actually what I'm working on now. I'm already starting to flirt around with the next short-term rental investment and figuring out where that can be, and, a place that I want to own. So that's the idea. But yeah, absolutely getting into the ownership and the investor side. That, at least in my head, is the evolution of the co-host. That's always been a goal for me, to build a real estate portfolio. So definitely not slowing down on that, and I'll hopefully keep doing it every single year.
Yeah. I tell people, as much as I love the management side of the business and managing for others, it's still a W-2 job, right? There's, you're always working for somebody else. You still have somebody that you're reporting to, and owning your real estate is truly the only way to have, in my opinion, financial freedom without a boss. Because the only boss you got is your guest, and that's just providing the experience that you have. You don't have somebody else that's, you're having to pay money to, or they're paying money to you, or, whatever. I think that's one of the things that, some masterminds that I've been in, they really push, just on the management side, but they don't really talk about the investing side. And I think we're all real estate investors, whether we have management companies or not. And I
Yeah.
think owning, building your own portfolio is, in my personal opinion, the only way to really produce generational wealth for your family.
Yeah, that's the plan. And co-hosting or short-term rental property management is such a great position to be in if that's your goal, because you are position A for those owners.
Yep.
When they are starting to think about a sale, they're going to go to the property manager, because you got to give the notice to the property manager. So you're going to be learning probably before, just after the spouse, that they're considering a sale. So that's exactly how our deal happened so easily. Was the owner came to us, said, "Hey, we're thinking about selling." And then we just asked, "All right, what's your number?" Like we're happy to, see who we know. And then they told us their number. And because we're position A, we're like, all right, that's a pretty good number. So we went back. We're like, all right, well, you don't need to deal with all the agents. You don't need to deal with all the marketing. We'll take it off your hands. We found your buyer pretty quickly. But they're going to come to you. So, and you already know the operations, the process, how to optimize a listing. So it's a great way to, train yourself and position yourself to be the real estate investor, to get the generational wealth, to build the portfolio. And I definitely, I'm trying to think if I would do it again. And if I'm trying to get out of a W-2 job right now, I still think co-hosting is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, one of the things that you've started to do, and it's something that I did early on as I, kind of, became an expert in the space, is, there's a lot of these really expensive masterminds. I love, Sjogren and Bill Faith and all these different ones. But for the person that's starting out that doesn't have a lot of capital, you took out a credit card, but, not everybody's willing to take that big of a risk. I had a mastermind that I helped a bunch of people jumping into the space. I had it for about 2.5 years. You have kind of developed into a coaching program to where you're helping some of these aspiring co-hosts as well.
Yeah. And it was cool because I went through the STR Secrets program, and then within 10 months, they asked me to come on as a coach, and I was the youngest coach for STR Secrets. So I started to learn what it was like on the other side for people trying to build their own businesses. And after coaching probably about 40 students there, I realized that I could absolutely add value to people trying to start their own business. And I saw it as an opportunity to start offering what I'd call more of a cohort. There's definitely a lot of educational material and coaching material, but it's really a small group of people that I am helping go from that 0 to 1 phase. And really, in my head, the 1 is $10,000 a month, or getting out of that W-2 job that they're looking to pivot from. So I'm working right now with a small group. I'm just capping it at 20 people, but helping them get to that next level where they are fully an entrepreneur. They are making money off this business. And hopefully they see some of the lifestyle benefits too. Like it's not passive, but at the same time, if we want to go to the gym at 11 a.m., if you want to go on a trip, you're not asking for permission. All of the benefits to owning a business, I still think, are so much more valuable and appealing than pretty much any job can provide you. So, those people that are looking for something like that, that's where it's been fun to, be on the other side of it after scaling in the last 2 years and helping people have a similar, positive trajectory. So, definitely starting to see some wins too, which has been cool to watch them go from 0 to 1 to now 5 properties. And I'm like, okay, you're doing it. Let's keep going. And it's the power of the community. It's the power of that confidence you got to build. So that's been fun too. If anyone wants to learn about it, it's just my first name - last name.com. So Ryan Leake, LEAKE.com. And that has more info about that small group coaching program.
Awesome. Definitely, if you're new and starting out, and or you're stuck at 1 or 2 or 3 and want to get to the next level, highly recommend it. I mean, the investment that I've made in masterminds and coaching over the past 3 years is way beyond I ever would have ever imagined investing, and I foresee me investing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of $1,000s more as we grow and scale, because it's the most important thing you can do is invest in yourself and your business. And on top of that, one of the things I love about this business more than anything is everybody has that abundance mindset. You will be someone that'll coach in your own market, knowing that you're coaching your competitor, because there's enough business for us all to be successful. Nobody's got to go and nobody's got to fail for somebody else to succeed in this business. And that's one of my favorite parts about it.
Amen. Couldn't agree more, man. Well, yeah. Anything else you want to leave on, or is that a wrap?
No, I think that's it, man. I think it's pretty awesome. We're going to put all your information in the show notes so people can get a hold of you. And if they're interested in either your services in those two markets, obviously we want to have your property management company, which is 5-Star Vacation Home Rentals, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so, if you're in the Austin, San Antonio, are you guys expanding anywhere else? Or are you right now just really focused on those two markets?
That's pretty much it right now, yeah.
Yep. So if you're in those two markets, or somebody that's investing in those two markets, definitely get a hold of them. And if you're looking to grow and scale, get a hold of Ryan and, join his coaching program to help you get to the next level. So, any parting words or anything for anyone in the space?
No, I'm an open book though. Seriously, just like any guest or owner, if you want to text or call me or email me, check out my website. All my info's there, and reach out if I can help in any way. But appreciate the time here.
Awesome. And thank you all so much for joining me on another episode of the Short-Term Rental Playmaker podcast. Memorial Day is here. Peak season's here. You guys ready? Because when this episode's peak season's here. So have a good week, everyone.